Hi, photography. So I wanted to check in with you and talk to you about the calendar and the other assignments that have been assigned already, and then talk about the lighting presentation that I sent you yesterday. So let me share my screen with you. All right. So here I just wanted to show you the calendar and show you that we're here on Monday, the review lighting presentation. So note that any of these assignments, you can get to the assignments through the link. And so if you haven't done the photo essay, if you haven't done the Life Imitate Arts summatives, you can find links to those there. So today is the presentation reviewed by me. And then on Friday, you guys are gonna have a quiz where there's gonna be a series of portraits. And then you'll see a photo. And when you see that photo, you'll be asked what kind of lighting was used for that particular portrait, okay? Because you guys don't have a studio in your home, we are going to talk about doing those same kind of setups in your home with the natural lighting from a window that you could still do those kind of lighting with just a single light source. And then you'll have that presentation on Monday, and then you'll have sketches due for your ideas for portraits with natural lighting. Then the next week you'll take pictures formatively, and then I'll give you some feedback about those pictures. You might nail it on the head and your formatives will be counted as your summatives. Otherwise, I might give you some suggestions and have you reshoot, and then your natural light summatives will be due mid-May. Then you guys will have review for master exams, and the master exams would happen the same week that they would have if you were really in school. Okay, so let me bring up the presentation. So originally you can see that this presentation was done with our studio lights in mind, and that you would be working with continuous light. So you guys already had that a lot of education about lighting, direction of light, quantity of light, quality of light, and lighting temperature. This presentation is about the amount of lights you're using, and then the specific name for those kind of lighting setups in the industry. So we practice 3-point lighting, but this time you're going to do it with a person instead of an object. So we have the person here, the camera is facing the person, and then we have the 3 types of lights. So we have the key light, which is the strongest light at an angle, and then we have the fill light that's filling in all the shadows of the person, and then we have a light on the back to give them a really nice halo effect on the portrait. So that's 3-point lighting. Okay, so remember that the key light's the most intense and it's at a 45-degree angle to the camera. Remember the fill is softer, and that means that you need to put some kind of diffusion, or you might actually change the proximity from the subject to make it lighter. And then we have the back, which is separating the background from the subject, and we want to kind of give that contour around the edge of their hair and their shoulders. Okay, this is if I turn on each light individually. So you can see the key light here, really strong. This only, and then we turn on the fill light, and then we turn on the backlight, so one at a time. Also notice the backlight's also called background, rim, or I was taught in film school that it was called the kicker light. Okay, just as a reminder, you could have high key or low key lighting depending on the quantity of light. Okay, so high key means that it's a lot of light, and usually it's even and diffused. It doesn't have, it has very softened shadows, and usually have more than one light. Versus low key, usually has lots of contrast, very dramatic shadows. So just remember what kind of style of light you're going to go for with how many and what type of light you're going to use. Okay, and some more examples of high key versus low key, and another low key for you, and some more low key, and you know, using more than one light. We're going to have obviously different highlights and shadows. You're going to get more low key when you have more than one light. Okay, and even though we have our modifiers in the classroom, so think about how you can make modifiers in your own home when you start setting up this project. Do you have foil? Do you have, even like a t-shirt, a white t-shirt could be used as diffusion, even parchment paper, even black cardstock could be used as a flag. Think about the kind of things you have around your house that you could actually use. In class, this is why we did this. We had you guys use everything from like milk jugs to all different kinds of like reflective objects like mirrors and stuff like that. Think about the things that are around your house that if you're taking photographs and you're not really happy with it, remember that you can modify the light with, you might not have a modifier, but you can with just everyday objects. Okay, so these are the common lighting setups. So again, you'll see a variety of pictures on your quiz on Friday, and then you're gonna have to look, kind of investigate the photograph, and then be a detective and tell me what type of light setup was used to light the model, okay? So this is one light setups. And this one is high noon, and I'm glad that it's called high noon. Sometimes it's also called extreme overhead, but you guys are going to be doing your own portraits at home, in front of a window. And how are you going to get that kind of direction at home? High noon, you would have to wait until about noon when it's, the sun is very high in the sky, and you're going to get that kind of direction coming from. It's like 2 o'clock at my house, so you can see it's a little bit more coming out at the angle versus, above my head, just in my window right here. So you can see that's coming from directly above the person. Next, we have what's called flat lighting, and that means that you have a single light and it's going just straight at the person. Notice there's no shadows. There's no soft shadows. There's nothing. She's a beautiful woman, and it actually looks pretty, even and more like a low-key lighting. But usually it's not very flattering for people to have flat lighting, directly in their face. Next, if you have 1-point lighting and it's coming from below, you could do this with like a flashlight or something like that. They call this either monster lighting or under lighting. Okay, next we have with one single light behind the subject, going at them, and yes, it creates a silhouette. So this is when you have light coming from behind the subject, and then the camera is here facing the subject, and then that's how we get that silhouette. Next we have split. Okay, so notice we have the camera here facing the subject, and then the light source is coming straight from one side. So then we have a shadow on one side, and it really is split right down the middle. Okay, so half in light, half out. So half face lit, half face shadow, and it should be about 90 degrees off the subject, and usually a little higher than eye level. So this is one of the setups that you will be asked to do in home. You can almost do it right now in my window, except I need to get closer to the light because notice that it's not getting to the edge of my face. So again, think about proximity and those kind of things. Okay, some more examples of split lighting. All right, next we have Rembrandt lighting. Okay, and this is popular because of the artist Rembrandt and his paintings. So here we have the camera and the person's straight and the light source is coming at a 45-degree angle. Okay, but you're probably wondering, how am I going to do this in my home? If I can't actually control the angle of, the light that's coming through the window. And just note that there's going to be this triangular highlight on the cheek, and that it's a dramatic kind of lighting. So how you're going to do this is, if you do have a window, notice that you're going to have to angle the person to get that triangular shape on the other side right here. And then this is the camera. So instead of actually angling the light, you're going to actually angle your subject comparatively to the window. And again, here are some great examples of, you can see the triangular shape underneath the eye on the opposite side of the window or light source. Okay, this lighting setup is called Glamour. It's also called Butterfly. It's also called Paramount. From Paramount Pictures, this is how they would light people back in the old days when they would like take their headshots for movies and stuff like that. Think of Marilyn Monroe and some old actresses. And this was to try to kind of give people more narrow cheekbones and emphasize really good skin. It was mostly used for women back in glamour shot days. And it was really trying to actually get the light to be in front of the subject's face. And again, hollow out those cheekbones and create emphasis on the eyes. So what does that look like? You are going to have an overhead light, and you're going to have it also bouncing off of a modifier below with a little arm. And when we're actually doing this in the studio, obviously I'm not going to ask you to do this because I can't presume that you do have modifiers in your home. And how would you shoot this, you know, like with the light coming straight at them from the window. So this is one that you don't need to do at home, but you should know how to do, especially if you're taking photo too. I'm sure Mr. Bustamante is going to go over all this lighting again. Okay, the next one is called loop lighting, and you'll know, when you're looking at a portrait and you're like, what kind of lighting was this used here? The telltale sign of loop is this little indicator right below the nose, okay? And when you see that, you know that it used loop lighting, okay? It creates a small loop-like shadow on either side of the nose. And the light source is above the camera and slightly to the side is how you actually create that loop, okay? Here's another example. So again, high and down, and it's really just higher than the camera and not too, this is like more of a 45, but it's usually just a little bit to the right of the camera, okay? Next we have short lighting, and when you want to make somebody look actually thinner, and that's when the main light source comes from the short side of the subject and the broad side of the face is more in shadow, okay? So you're like focusing on having the light kind of on the narrow end and then putting the broad side, that side into shadow to kind of emphasize the face, you know, the features in the front. So notice that the main light is facing furthest from the camera and that you're kind of angling that person into it. And this is broad, so this illuminates the larger portion of the face visible to the camera, and the face looks slightly larger and fuller. So the main light is on the face closest to the camera. This is the broad side of the face. So we can see that angle here and that you've angled the person. All right. We also have just rim lighting. Okay. So that is when they're mostly in a low-key lighting situation, but you're putting a rim light on to purposefully get rim more than just around the halo and the shoulders, but around their entire silhouette. So here you can see that they did it with multiple lights with very small f-stops to not let a lot of light in to get that dramatic profile shot. And so you can have it behind and you can have more than one, again, to try to fill in those areas to get more than one kind of outline around the person. More examples of rim light. Okay, so you are going to be the photographer and you're going to have a subject for your natural lighting project. So hopefully you have somebody in your home. If not, then think about what could you use as a subject or an object. Do you have a doll? Do you have an animal in the house? You know, if you don't have those things, could you find an object that you're going to light and use as your subject? If possible, you might want to see if you have other siblings or, you know, parents or something else to be your assistant, especially if you think you might need to modify the light, like diffusion or something like that, so that you can focus on taking a good picture and not so much setting up the scene, okay? And then usually in the studio, you would have, you'd be the photographer, you'd ask another person in class to be your assistant. You might have other people being grips who are actually in charge of the lights and the sandbags and all that, the equipment and stuff like that. And then you'd actually have the model or the subject, the one that you're actually looking to take a picture of, okay? For your home pictures, you're gonna have to really pay attention to your background. Try to keep it simple, and everything in the photograph should be purposeful. That's gonna be really hard because you might just be doing it in your living room, and that might mean you actually have to move furniture, you might have to move things out, you might have to clean up and then bring other things in. You're gonna have to do a lot of thought next week about who's gonna be your subject, what are they gonna wear, what kind of props are you going to. So it's not just about setting up the light, but how are you gonna make yours unique, creative, compared to everybody else who's doing the same exact project. So with your iPad, with Lightroom, you want to look at your shutter speed if you can, because you don't want to have blurry images because you're taking portraits. Of course, you're going to want them to be still, but what if you're taking pictures of an animal instead of a person? You might have to do a little bit of a faster shutter speed just to get a sharp, clear picture. And then again, think about everything we've learned about composition. Obviously, hopefully the subject is the focal point, but how can you create movement to your focal point? And you want to also think about people and posing. And with that in mind, think about perspective. Where are you going to be in relationship to the subject? Below, high, straight on. Is it going to be really dramatic? Are you going to get really low? Are you going to get really high? Think about your depth away from the person. How far are you going to be from them? Are you going to be doing close-ups? Are you going to be doing far away? And then don't forget about the things like rule of thirds, where their eyes going to fall within the picture, filling the frame, or you're going to give it space, room to move, that kind of thing. And think about props and costumes that you might be able to incorporate because you're home. You have those things at your fingertips. You know what's in your house. Do you have, a sibling that's in Irish dance that you could have them dress in that? Or do you have some things around your house that you could make more of a statement with and use in really unique ways? Do you have hats, that kind of thing? Umbrellas, costume, makeup? Do you have household animals like elephants that you could use? And then when you're actually taking the picture, something I want to mention was don't cut people off at joints. So these are two pictures that people are cut off at their joints. So here we actually cut her off where her wrists are, and here we cropped it right at her knee. So we cut her at the knee. We'd actually suggest that you cut, slightly above, which we call a cowboy shot, or slightly a little bit higher here, so it's more higher than her wrists. Because it looks really awkward in pictures. So that was, that's one of my suggestions for you when you're taking portraits. So here are some examples of how to crop between the joints. So again, here we can see this is quite a bit above the knee, below the waist, below the shoulders, kind of at the collarbone, below the knee. So these are all examples of how what they look like and how it's not going to look awkward if you do it at the joints. And then these are examples from in-studio portraits. On Monday, I'll get you guys some more examples of student work that was done with natural lighting at home. But you can see that the students brought in, like this one I thought was really funny. He brought in his laptop. He wore a really nice outfit. He wore glasses. This one, again, he brought in his jacket and kind of, used it in like a model-like situation. And then he did something really creative here where he took a piece of just clear a laser transparency. He sprayed it with water, and then he shot the picture, through that to get the droplets. So that was something very creative that he just thought of his own for the portrait. And then here, really like that this was low key, using the sunglasses, and doing more than one shot, trying to get the different styles of lighting. Again, she went all out with makeup, bringing in an outfit, bringing in jewelry. She looks like a real model, you know, for this portrait. Again, some really great. I really liked how she brought on all these props for it, making it really unique and colorful. Again, thinking about her makeup too. And then how could you get, you know, we'll talk about this a little bit more on Monday, but how do you get, you know, natural, or maybe you want to engage, you know, your subject, what kind of reaction shot are you going to do, because you are doing portraits. All right. So that's what I have for you guys today. On Friday, you guys will be doing a quiz again. So you'll be seeing pictures, and I'll be saying something like, you know, what kind of lighting is this? And hopefully you would, if you saw something like this, you'd be like, this is a rim lighting was used. Or you saw something like this and you're like, oh, this is loop lighting, because I could see that little shadow around their nose. Or, oh, this is Rembrandt, because I can see the triangle in their eye. Or I know this is split lighting because they're half in darkness and half in lightness. So that's a quiz that you can expect this Friday. And then next week, we'll go into a little bit more detail about posing your subject, setting up your natural light at home, and just a couple more details about your actual summative. All right, so I hope you guys are doing well. And until next time, I will see you later.